So yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind, to be honest with you.
When did it become clear to you that you were going to be the AI guy?
I don't want to talk about how great this is without giving someone some next step of, okay, how can that actually benefit me or my company?
You don't have to have that much technical knowledge to run these models on your local hardware.
I want to hear the story of how we get to Topher Stephenson on today, February 7th, 2025. What are you doing now? Where did you come from? And how the heck did you get here?
Oh man, that might be a dangerous place to start because I'm liable to just start rambling about it. But I guess, like as it pertains to commercial real estate, I answered a Craigslist ad back in the day for a company that was, looking for a real estate marketing analyst. And I'm pretty sure they didn't really know what that was. I definitely didn't know what that was, but I interviewed and got the job, and just kind of fell in love with working in commercial real estate. It was working for a company that just owned properties like kind of all over the country. And so they work with brokers as kind of their boots on the ground, but they specifically wanted to work with someone to kind of like kick up, their in-house digital marketing for these properties a notch. And so it was cool, like two different sides. It was a really good way to kind of learn and understand a lot of different pieces of commercial real estate really quickly. Because it could be a 1,200 square foot retail space in Farmington, Connecticut, or a 50,000 square foot warehouse in Tucson, Arizona. And my mission was just kind of like, okay, who's actually going to use this thing? What can it be used for? How do we, advertise to those people, execute, track the leads as they came in, and then try to do the whole thing, a little bit smarter and wiser the next time. And, went pretty well. And over the course of time, kind of transitioned from, hey, Topher's taking all these calls, why don't we let him just kind of, start working some of these deals. So kind of still was running all the marketing, but kind of transitioned to being, kind of in-house deal maker, lease side, sometimes on the sales side, just kind of, dependent on the property. And then that went great, but we kind of eventually, ran out of stuff to work on. It was an ownership group, and the economy was good. They bought a bunch of stuff when the economy was bad. And just over the course of time, we leased it all and kind of sold it all. So I was somewhat reading the writing on the wall there, and got recruited to essentially manage a brokerage company. So I went over and kind of tried to figure out how to do that. And, I was kind of coming from a background of had a lot of digital marketing experience, and then kind of really understood commercial real estate and, applying digital marketing to commercial real estate. But the brokerage world was still kind of new to me. So kind of went from, just marketing specific properties to, trying to enable a company to market those properties and, run the day-to-day operations and kind of make strategic decision on the company's behalf. And so, yeah, it's kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind, to be honest with you. To 11 years ago, I didn't, just kind of an average person, didn't necessarily know the difference between residential real estate or commercial real estate, just like anyone else who's not in it. And then, did a lot of property marketing, made a lot of deals, managed a brokerage for a while, and then met up with Brandon through Twitter. And we were just getting excited about all the same things, social media and AI and technology and kind of everything that it's going to do to change the industry, and just kind of decided we had to partner up to make it happen. So I've been working with Aspire ever since, and obviously, kind of getting myself out there on the AI side, just trying to educate people how to actually use this amazing technology for commercial real estate. And, that takes shape in the form of doing presentations, as you've seen some of those fly, putting out content on social media. I'm teaching a class very soon with Rod Santamassimo. I think we have over 125 brokers signed up for it. And then last but not least, some consulting projects as they come up, as people just kind of decide, hey, I like learning about this stuff, but I just want someone to kind of help me do it. And so a little bit of a lot of stuff, if that makes sense.
What was it like to meet Brandon for the first time after y'all had started forging a relationship on social media?
It was awesome. We already felt it already felt like we were reasonably close, like before we ever met in person, because we were introduced via social media. We traded some phone calls, just kind of chatting about all this stuff. And then, he essentially kind of inked the deal before we met each other at CREI. And so when I went down to meet him, I think we clicked pretty quick. It was just kind of like same conversations we'd hang out, have over the phone, but we were having them in person. But there was a pretty scary moment, when I had just kind of decided to leave my job to work with Aspire. All of a sudden I'm up on stage, giving a presentation on AI in front of Brandon, who I'm now working for, and all of these other people who I could potentially work with on consulting engagements. And I was like, man, if this goes poorly, I'm taking a lot of relationships very quickly. And there were points during the presentation where I was just looking around and I was like, this is going so poorly and it could end very bad. But, it ended up going great, and, had a great time down there meeting people and hanging out with Brandon and everybody else. And, everyone seemed to get a real kick out of the presentation. So no, it was great. There were parts of the experience that were nerve-wracking, but it was a lot of fun.
And that was in Atlanta this past September.
Yeah.
That was the first time that you met Brandon IRL? That's insane to me.
First time. Yep. Pulled the trigger over the phone, and then figured we'd meet sooner or later anyway. So
how did you, okay, so in the journey, the good but of course fraught journey of coming to where you are now, when did it become clear to you that you were going to be the AI guy? I've made this joke a couple of times on different platforms, but I've joked that like anytime AI and commercial real estate comes up in a conversation, it's like Beetlejuice, where it's like they're going to say it and you're just going to pop out of the internet and like have the answer. Like I try to tag you every time. I'm like, do you know Topher? You're going to talk to Topher about this? But like, tell me about your beginnings of working with AI and like how that, because that in a lot of ways is really a big part of your personal brand now.
Topher, maybe start with, were you always a technology person? Like, were you interested in that stuff, and how that has kind of evolved into your relationship with AI?
Yeah, I would say it all kind of stems from, having a digital marketing background. And when I first got into commercial real estate, that was kind of the first thing that showed me the writing on the wall, just in that, like, wow, either people aren't really leveraging technology in this space, or just for whatever reason, nobody's talking about it, because like in digital marketing, it's like, you want to learn how do you do email marketing, you Google it, and there's just thousands of people, like writing articles about all this stuff, trying to, rank well on Google. If, back in 2014, when I started doing it, if you were to Google, how do I market a commercial real estate building for sale, like nothing came up, or the stuff that came up was just like garbage. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't going to work. Nothing really relevant. And so, that was kind of my introduction into, okay, the industry, can be kind of behind the times, but also, there's something of an opportunity here to be someone who's educating on best practices and how to do that, and that was kind of part of, what got me really excited when I first got into commercial real estate, because all of a sudden I was like, man, like, it doesn't seem like anyone's doing, like, really even applying just digital marketing best practices to the space. What if we just do that? Maybe we'll sell and lease a whole ton of property. And we did. and so, I think when I was kind of getting towards the end of, that particular time in my career, I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of get on social media and start talking about this in a big way. But right around that time, I transitioned to working in brokerage. And so it was just kind of like, all right, back to the drawing board. I'm learning something completely new. But just kind of, combination of working in the brokerage space and working, on the marketing and deal making side, just, for a property ownership group, like my whole career has always just been about, okay, how, what are the problems that we're facing here with commercial real estate, and how do we leverage technology in order to solve them and just make everybody's life easier? It doesn't matter if that makes your life easier in the form of, selling a property faster because you leverage digital marketing to get out in front of the right people faster, or, alleviating some kind of operational issue, that pertains to commercial real estate brokerage or ownership or property management, that is just something that's sucking up people's time and that nobody likes to do. And so it wasn't necessarily always AI focused. But, eventually, similar to a lot of other people, ChatGPT came out and I was like, this is going to be big, so I just immediately started kind of diving into it, seeing different ways that we could apply it to commercial real estate. And, I was already putting out content about, marketing best practices and brokerage best practices and technology in general. But obviously people were really, really interested in AI, as was I. And I kept leaning in to using it, kept leaning into the content, and it just kind of built and built and built. And now we are where we are now.
When you talk about, hey, people weren't really digitally advertising or doing it well, or they weren't using artificial intelligence, or they weren't doing it well, what are some examples of things you saw when the market wasn't seeing it?
On the marketing side, it's just kind of endless things. Like a simple example would have been, pardon me, everyone always talks trash on LoopNet, but I think like one of the very first effective advertisements we ran was this thing called the LoopNet like hot properties bulletin. And everyone with a LoopNet account got this email blast. And everyone just kind of thought that if you saw a property in here, it was just, a property that you should know about. But I did some research and it turned out you could just buy an ad space in this LoopNet ad that went out to everybody with a LoopNet account in the country. And the ad was like $1,500. I was like, that just seems like a really good reach, for $1,500, so we, sometimes that would go out and there would be like empty slots in it. It just wasn't something that was highly leveraged at the time. And so it just so happened we had a decent amount of multifamily properties that we had kind of renovated and improved over the course of time. I was like, okay, if there's anything that we could get out to people across the country who are on LoopNet, what would they have appetite for? Multifamily. Everyone seems to like multifamily, so we experimented with that, put a property under contract in like under a week. And then, we were like, okay, there's something here and we have more of these properties, so let's keep doing it. So kept putting out this blast and we got a little bit smarter. We were like, okay, let's build a CRM. And so all these people would reach out from this blast. Obviously, only one of them would buy the property, but we just kind of built up this database of, okay, here's people throughout the country that want to buy this property. And, eventually that ad went away, but we had this magic list, of people that we just knew were already kind of interested in this property just from around the country. And so, again, it's not necessarily always taking something that is like a novel idea, like I didn't create this LoopNet ad. It was just kind of there and people weren't really using it. I didn't create the idea of a CRM, but like so many people just aren't leveraging CRMs effectively. It doesn't have to be all that complicated. It's like people reach out about something, you categorize them based on the kind of thing that they're interested in. And then when you have that thing, you send it to them and one of them will buy it. So it's kind of, again, it's not always doing so. Like, did we do social media advertising for real estate back when not a lot of people were? Yes. Did we sell some properties doing that? Yes. Were we one of probably the first commercial real estate operators in the state of Maine that like bought our own drone, was doing our own drone videos and advertising? Yes. But like, it doesn't always have to be something brand new, to make a big impact. It just has to be something that's effective. And it's even better if a lot of other people aren't doing it. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. And you should just like go tweet that right now.
That's a good clip. That's a good sound.
Good job.
Yeah. Thanks.
That was really professional.
Got to softball you a couple. That'll make the editing like really easy, right? You just search for that one.
We run a very basic yet really professional, casual operation here. What does it mean to be a social media powered brokerage?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. I think a couple of things. We want to celebrate brokers that want to be out there on social media and kind of have a personal brand. That was probably part of the reason that Brandon reached out and wanted to work with me. He's like, hey, I need someone to help operate this company. And, are there other people that know what they're doing? Yes. But how many are there that are kind of, creating a personal brand based on, how to operate a commercial real estate brokerage company? Like there's power in kind of building those audiences and then combining them for something greater, if that makes sense. I mean, a lot of commercial real estate brokerages out there, not to talk down on anybody, but like not everybody does celebrate that, like not everybody wants their commercial real estate brokers to have their own personal brand and, be enriching their business and, selling properties via social media. Like they kind of want the brokerage to be the face of that. We want Aspire Commercial to have a really powerful brand as well, but we want to, work with and celebrate the brokers that, are already putting the effort in, that, want to get themselves out there and want that to be a real way, that they are developing business. And so we celebrate that, and, we want to enable them to do that. And honestly, the best way to do that, we're still kind of figuring it out, like we're still developing that playbook of like, hey, okay, how can we, fully enumerate step by step how Topher's growing his audience, and how can Brandon fully enumerate step by step, how he's growing his audience. As I'm sure both of you, it's like we try a lot of things that don't work at all, then we'll try something that just hits and it's like, wow, I didn't even put that much effort into that one, and it just kind of went, so kind of orchestrating that all into a paint by numbers thing that we could just hand somebody and say, hey, you want to be a broker who does well on social media, here's the playbook. It's going to take more time for that, but we can celebrate that and enable people, just through collaboration. Like me and Brandon have both grown our followings together, just by synergy, us kind of tweeting out and, promoting each other, retweeting each other, cross-posting things with each other, like even just the announcement that I was coming on board at Aspire. I think that was probably like one of my highest performing tweets of all time. Might not have been Brandon's, and it generated a lot of buzz, like there were people kind of who already knew about it when we got to CREI, and so is that going to develop someone's personal brand overnight? No, but it's, kind of fostering the environment where we're going to do that for people. We're going to enable them to do that. We make a pretty big investment into video content, not just for Brandon himself, but, for like the properties that we're promoting. And is that an opportunity for, a broker who has a listing to say, hey, I want my face to be in this video. We're going to put this out on social media. It's going to get thousands of views. How can I be a part of that? That's on the table. If you're trying to get your face out there and kind of build up your following, we'll make investments and we will, work with you to enable you to do that. Do we just have the answer that's going to enable you to do that? We don't have that yet. It's good. It's going to take some effort, but, I think it's all about the fact that we're celebrating it, the fact that we are supporting it, and just kind of the culture we're creating where, we're kind of pumping each other up to enable everybody to do that.
And when you're thinking about the future of your business, let's dive deep into the artificial intelligence, because that's kind of where you get a lot of excitement. I've seen on your social media and other people's, like some of our listeners are wondering, okay, how do we use artificial intelligence? I've heard a lot about it. I've heard good things, but I don't really know how to do it. Can you talk specifically on how you're currently using artificial intelligence to grow your guys' business?
Yeah, I think they're almost kind of two different questions. Like if you're trying to figure out like, hey, I want to use AI and I just don't know where to start. I don't follow Gary Vee too closely, but like anytime he's talking about a new social media platform and people are like, oh, I'm not going to worry about threads, I'm just not going to do it. He's like, look, you don't have to commit to doing threads. Like just taste it, just try it out, give it a shot. And that's kind of how I think about it with AI tools as well. It's like, you don't have to, I subscribe to a lot of AI tools. I'm kind of a power user, I'm doing a lot of different stuff. You don't have to do everything. You just have to make an effort to see what's out there see what's actually going to, make your life easier or make your business easier, and figure out how to apply it. And so, the first step is kind of try out a couple of these different tools. Like a lot of them have free trials. You don't even have to spend a lot of money to kind of see if something works for you or not. So that's kind of step one. It's just figuring out the tools that you think are going to work for you and kind of make your life and your business easier, and figuring them out how to put to work. The next step is, Fly saw this at my presentation. I'm very bullish on like custom GPTs and kind of like customized versions of these tools, and all the different LLMs have them. Claude has custom projects, ChatGPT has custom GPTs, Google has Google Gems. If you find something that ChatGPT or one of these things can do really effectively for you, you can customize it so that it just does that automatically. People always ask me like, "Oh, Topher, do you have a database of prompts? Can you like sell me a database of prompts?" I'm like, well, I don't really have like just a bunch of copy and paste prompts, because if I find a prompt that works really well, I'd make a custom GPT out of it. And then I don't have to worry about memorizing like an 8-paragraph, prompt on how to summarize a lease. I just go to this custom GPT, I upload the lease, and it already knows that I want all that information. So again, just kind of customizing it. It's like, that's where you kind of get to that next level where you really start to save time, because you don't have to be a ChatGPT prompting wizard, to be able to do that. And then the next step from there, people call them different things. People say, AI agents. Some people just say, hey, it's AI automation. Depends what buzzword, you're really subscribing to. But just kind of the next step is, a lot of these, if you can get a custom GPT to do something, you can probably automate that process so that you don't even need to like download the document and go into the custom GPT and, use it. So just think of like any kind of document that you receive or put somewhere, say you upload something to a Dropbox, or you get an email and, you label it as, invoice, or, some kind of trigger that you want to make something happen. You can set up these different automation platforms to recognize that, oh, I got an email where the subject line is this. So now I'm going to download that attachment. I'm going to extract all the text from it. I'm going to analyze and find, some additional information from it. And then maybe you want to do some math to actually, do something with that information that you're pulling out. And then you want to send that analysis to somebody or upload it somewhere else. It's like anything where you have a document that comes in and you want to perform some kind of automated analysis with it. Like the document comes in, AI automatically pulls out information, runs an analysis, and then you can put that information anywhere that you want to. So those are kind of like the 3 levels to it. It's like, learn to use some tools, learn to customize them for you. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can kind of learn to automate it.
So an example would be if you received an LOI for Lease and you could trigger it as incoming LOI, this custom GPT would download it, extract information from it, pull the information into a draft email, and you can forward on, something that says, hey, I think we should do this lease based off of whatever the extracted summary is. Is that kind of a good example of how you're using it?
Yeah, that's it. It all kind of depends on the information you're looking for. I would say that particular example, like, no, we're not using that particular example, but that is an example. Like another one I think of all the time. One company in particular said, hey, like, dude, we're just reviewing offering memorandums every day. I don't know why they make them all so long. Like they could all just have a condensed list of information in them. Could we have a custom GPT that pulls that out for us? And I was like, yeah, I made it while a pizza was cooking. That took like 20 minutes. But if you really wanted to, you could set up an automation where, anytime you have an email that says offering memorandum in it, the automation automatically checks for an attachment. If there's an attachment, it downloads it, reads all the text, pulls out very specific things that you want to find from that offering memorandum, and then just send yourself that email with that summary, so you don't have to flip through the 20-page document. Or maybe you want to take it a step further. You could say, all right, pull out that information from the OM. And now, like, I don't even want to read an email unless I know this, kind of like at the top level meets my investment criteria. So you could tell, this next automation step, hey, look at the cap rate, look at the tenant mix, look at the location. Unless it meets these, this, and this qualifications, I don't want to know about it. So if it doesn't meet those, just trash it. But if it does, trigger my project management system or my CRM or wherever you store this information. Maybe it's a Google sheet, and automatically add all of those things that you pulled out to this Google sheet so that you get a notification saying, hey, there's a new OM that met your investment criteria. It's in your Google sheet. Here's the information, but go have a look in the Google sheet. And then the Google sheet will just be kind of a running document of all the OMs you've received that actually meet your investment criteria. And so, there's different levels to using AI. It's all kind of figuring out what use case are you comfortable with. People talk to me all the time about, wanting to use it for due diligence. Again, it depends on what level of comfortability that you have. That's a very like top of funnel, due diligence piece. And so, would I be comfortable saying, hey, I want, AI to pull out this information so that I can store it in a Google sheet and then go review all these deals that AI said met my investment criteria? There's very low risk there. If you're making a buy or no buy decision based off this information that AI is pulling out of these documents, then you kind of need a human in the loop at some point. So again, it kind of, how you can use it to grow your business or to work more effectively, it kind of depends on how your business operates. It depends on what your business does. It depends on how familiar you are with AI so that like, oh, that looks kind of funky. I think I should go in and like double check that. It really does kind of come down to your specific use case. And, if it's something that you really do want to roll out like company wide, what kind of checks and balances are you going to have in place just to make sure that information is correct? So I know I'm kind of rambling here. Does this all make sense?
Yeah, it does. And you're not rambling. I do have a really important question though.
Sure.
What kind of pizza are you cooking while AI is doing all that stuff for you?
That one, I mean, it must have been pepperoni. If we're like putting a frozen pizza in the oven, it's always going to be pepperoni. So.
What brand? This is very important.
I'm a big bruschetta guy.
Bruschetta. All right.
Yeah.
Topher's
I haven't done it in a while,
yet.
but bruschetta with the sauce stuffed crust, that's some good stuff.
How do you get yourself to the point that you can go hands off with an automated process?
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I would say on the delegation side, and this kind of streams into the AI side, like trying to think of how exactly to say this. Like if you want to effectively delegate, like it's one thing to just start going through your to-do list and say, all right, this I'm giving to this person, this I'm giving to this person, this I'm giving to this person. Like that is delegation. If you want to be able to delegate and know that things are happening correctly, like the biggest thing that you can do is document your processes. Like that's just it. Like I've managed a lot of different people in the past, and I'm managing we're not a giant company, but I'm managing some people at Aspire, and I would say 90% of the time, if something goes wrong, it's with a process that we have not effectively documented yet. Sometimes it's because, hey, that's just something that doesn't come up all that much, or it's something where, we just thought we didn't need to. Like, hey, this person really knows how to do that. We got to focus on documenting these other things that, we know we're kind of having some issues with. If you, train people on how to do something, show them step by step the process, and record that training, make it available to them, and create a process document that if they don't want to have to watch an entire video every time they have a question about something, they can just kind of go refer to this process document. It's just going to make everybody's life so much easier because everybody wants to do the right thing. And so, how do you get comfortable with delegation? I think regarding, whether or not you're using AI or if you're not, it all comes down to process documentation. Training is a huge piece of it, but like You can't just train someone on something once and just assume they got it. Like you got to give them the tools to enable them to succeed. And the best part is that's probably what I spent the better part of like my first month at Aspire doing. It's like, okay, let's talk about all the processes that, we are doing on a regular day-to-day basis. Interview the people, who are executing those processes, tell them to lay it out for me step by step. And I'd record these meetings, and then I would dump it into ChatGPT and say, okay, now enumerate these processes for me. And not only would I say, okay, write me, a process doc, I would say, okay, now elaborate on anywhere where it seems like people misunderstand who is doing what at different steps. And so now you have kind of a web of, if anything's going wrong in your company, why is it happening? It's because people don't necessarily understand who is supposed to execute this next step. And so maybe they're emailing it to someone and saying, hey, okay, this is ready to go. And that person's just like, okay, that's great. I have nothing to do with that. Part of it is making sure your people are trained on, the actual processes, what a good job looks like, how to execute things step by step, but also just making sure the other people know in the company that like this person is doing that thing, so you have to somehow let them know that the ball is in their court. So, I mean, that's delegation. If you want to be good with delegation, I think letting people know exactly how to do that job you're asking them to do is just hugely important. And then, as far as delegating to AI goes, again, it's tough to give you like a specific answer because it does really depend on the use case. Like for example, we have documents that, flow into the company where, maybe we have someone from our operations team do something or create something from that document. For example, we get a lease, we have to create an invoice. We have someone who does that for us. I use AI to automatically, when we get that lease, automatically create a similar invoice for me that has all the information that this person who's creating the invoice, would have in their version. But, just to be frank with you, this person hasn't been doing it for all that long. They've worked at the company maybe less than 6 months. That's about the same time frame as me, but I've been working in commercial real estate a decade. They haven't. And so we need to get eyes on that information. And we can either review the information in a format that takes just as long as doing the task yourself, or we can run it through AI, have it go through all the same steps. And if everything comes out exactly the same, we're probably good to go. But if there's some kind of disconnect between one of their outputs, we know we got to crack open that lease and figure out exactly what went wrong. So again, it all kind of depends on the use case. We're not at the point where I would tell this person, hey, I want you to start using the AI to put, this information together in this particular invoice, because they're not really ready to do that. We need to make sure that they're doing it 100% effectively every single time before we start outsourcing it to a machine and telling them, hey, use the machine to check this information. So it's hard to fully answer that question because it depends on the use case. But then there's simpler things, like we just brought somebody on, and we have a custom GPT that, writes bios for our new employee. Every time we bring on a new employee, we say, hey, fill out this questionnaire. Now we're going to run it through this custom GPT, and it's going to create a bio that we're going to put on the website, and we'll put it in a social media post. They come out great. There's not a whole lot of risk involved, other than just making sure it didn't say something stupid. And so like, how does this get proliferated throughout the company? Well, we're a small company. So originally I was just kind of executing this process. It's like, hey, we have a new person. I'm the only person that can kind of do all this onboarding. So I'm doing it. But now we've hired another individual who's going to be handling a lot of onboarding. And so I just kind of told her like, hey, you don't have to use AI. I'm going to show you what I would do. You can do this if you want to, or if you just want to write this from scratch, that's fine. She saw it and she was like, well, Topher, I'm obviously going to use this. Like, this is just going to save me so much time, and it comes out really well. And she's a really, really smart individual. And so, the right answer of how do you automate and, know that you can depend on it every single time, it really depends on the task. It depends on the level of risk involved. It depends who you're going to have behind the wheel of this AI, because the phase that we're in now, there is going to be somebody, behind the wheel doing something with this information. I think just depending on the system it is and what kind of output you're looking to get. It just comes down to at what level do you need human input, and where is it going to be in the process, and who do you need it from? Sorry.
No,
I don't know
no,
why I
that,
apologize there, but
that was great. All right, last question. So we know what tasks are on our task list. We've gone through, we've designated this I want to delegate, this I don't. These are our SOPs for every task we have. What's the next step of how can we get someone to create a custom GPT? Is that hire someone to do it? Are companies hiring consultants? Are people saying, hey, you're a 25-year-old and you probably know a little bit more than I do. Can you figure this out? Like, how are people actually implementing this into their system? If that's something you do in some of your consulting work, give yourself a plug and let people know how they can contact you. But I don't want to talk about how great this is without giving someone some next step of, okay, how can that actually benefit me or my company?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there's kind of different levels to it. You know, if you just want to learn how to use AI, obviously I'm putting out a lot of free content on that. You know, Rod Santomassimo, he tweets about different ways to use AI all the time. If you're just kind of at the phase where, you know, again, you're kind of tasting things, you know, I think there's a reasonable, you know, number of places where you can kind of get content on that. We're recording this podcast now. I've seen some other ones floating out there that, you know, would be kind of a good starting point. If someone wants to learn to build a custom GPT, you know, again, there's different ways to go about it. Like me and Rod are teaching this commercial real estate AI course. It is, you know, geared towards brokerages, or sorry, I should say it's geared towards commercial real estate brokers. But yeah, I mean, coming up on a year ago, we taught over 100 people, you know, so you spent a full hour on, hey, this is how you build a custom GPT. And granted, it was for a very specific use case. But once you know how to do it, you know enough to be dangerous. And if it's something you really want to do, you know, you can build more of them, and, you know, you'll kind of know how to test them to see, okay, am I getting the kind of output that I want? Do I need to change the prompt and the instructions to get a better output? You know, the more you get reps in and use it, the more you kind of, you know, really become really good at building these things. And I should say, there are people who are in that course who have built some wild custom GPTs. I got to give a shout out to a guy named Jim Ardor. He just built some really, really cool ones. You know, he's tapping into APIs, he's automating things. So he was in the course, you know, a little less than a year ago, and he's just doing some really cool stuff. So again, it's, you know, it's not just that we're showing you how to do it and we're showing you how to do everything you could do with it, because everything you want to do with it, it's going to take some thought, you know, to kind of figure out what are the things that are really sucking up my time that I can use these tools for. On the automation side of it, that's where it starts to get a little fancier. You know, if you want to do it yourself, there are good resources out there for learning how to use different tools like Make and Zapier. The one I like is Relay, because it's kind of, you know, it's a little more AI forward. You know, I do put out some content on how to use that particular platform. We are going to be offering a course on specifically, you know, doing automations with AI and with specific commercial real estate use cases. But, you know, to be fully transparent, we're not quite ready for it yet. And I got to focus on this one that I'm doing with Rod first. But that said, you know, if you start clicking around, if you take the course, if you see some online content and you think, you know, like, this is great, but I just don't want to do it myself, you know, I want to work with someone who knows this stuff, you know, you can reach out to me. And, you know, whether it's a custom GPT or, you know, more of a custom, you know, AI automation to kind of leverage custom GPTs behind the scenes, or if it's, you know, a custom build, you know, if you say, hey, I want a database of my documents and I want to be able to kind of reference them all and chat with them and execute different, you know, sorts of AI functions. There's lots of things that we can do. I'm not going to be doing all of it 100% myself. You know, I have kind of some different partners that I work with on different specific use cases. But, you know, if there's something specific that you want to do as it pertains to leveraging AI in commercial real estate, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help any way that I can.
Topher's the man.
Thanks, Fly.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the man. And what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Find you on LinkedIn? Find you on X?
I'd say, yeah, right now, just find me on LinkedIn, find me on X, or, I don't necessarily have a website specifically for myself, but if you want to learn more about AI and commercial real estate, or just have another way that you can reach out to me, you can subscribe to the Chat CRE newsletter. And so you can find that at chatcrenews.com. And I try to put something out once a month about, just how to use different sorts of commercial real estate tools. How to use different AI tools for specific commercial real estate use cases. And, I think I just kind of tell people at the bottom of the email, hey, if this is something that's interested to you, if this is something that you're interested in, you can just respond to this email and it'll go directly to me. So that's another way that people can get in touch with me.
Wicked. Highly recommend giving Topher a follow across all channels, especially as advances are made and like new stuff comes out, and everyone's all, like, whatever the new buzz is in the AI space, Topher is really great about testing things out, showing comparisons, sharing with people, everything. And so it's just a really good, generous guy to follow. There. So
it. Thank you. Probably worth mentioning, I'm on X at Topher now, and LinkedIn, if you just type in Topher Stephenson, I think I'm the only one, so I'll probably pop up.
Cool.
All right. Awesome, Topher. Thank you. Appreciate your time, and looking forward to following you and seeing what you put out as AI continues to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much for having me, guys. This was fun. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Yes.
All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Fly. Quick background on Ollie. Ollie's a co-founder in a startup called Brickmate that I am affiliated with. I've known the other founder for more than a year now, and I get called in to help with some commercial real estate expertise stuff while they are the smart people building the actual startup and technology. But I was talking to Ollie earlier and said, hey, we're having people focus, or we're having a conversation on AI. I think it'd be helpful to get someone who actually knows the technical side of things. And Ollie just put out a piece of content on what the DeepSeek stuff was. So I think we could just go back and forth for 15 minutes on, hey, tell us what's happening in AI.
Yeah, I mean, I'm typically the behind the scenes guy, so I'd appreciate if you guys edited this to make me look smart or not. Yeah, so I could get right into it. So, I mean, the big news is DeepSeek. Everybody's been talking about it for quite a while. So just for everybody's knowledge, DeepSeek R1 is a reasoning model that a company, DeepSeek, located in China, released. It caused a stir in the industry. Before that release, the top of the line, the state-of-the-art model was OpenAI's O1 reasoning model, and that model was behind a $200 paywall. And so here comes a scrappy, not even AI firm, you could say, really, like it's some like random shop in China, produced just as good of a model and open sourced it. And on top of that, they basically did it on limited hardware. And so the implications of that were massive. One, it meant that there is no wall that we thought there was before in terms of like optimizations of what you can get from these models. There's a lot left on the table that you can still extract. So the trend is going to continue. These models are going to get smarter and smarter. And the fact that it was open sourced was a big deal because now it's more generally available, right? Like you don't have to have that much technical knowledge to run these models on your local hardware. So that was a really big deal. And so those two trends, I think will continue. And I think what that means for everybody else is that this trend of continuously improving models is going to continue. And so they really shouldn't keep up with that because there's always going to be something that's 10% or 20% better every other week. There's going to be like a 36-hour news cycle with something coming out better and better. And so for most people, what they should be thinking about is how do I adopt these solutions. And so I think that's really the biggest takeaway is that they're going to get smarter. We're going to be able to, startups like Brickmate are going to be able to build more bespoke solutions for like commercial real estate operators like we are. And so there's a lot of productivity gains that you can achieve by adopting a solution like Brickmate or any other partner, any other startup that's utilizing these technologies.
And a small detail in what you said was both a reasoning model and open source. And I think a lot of people think OpenAI means open source, but it's not really. And people know ChatGPT, but they don't know the difference of, well, is ChatGPT a reasoning model? Can you dive a little deeper into those two comments?
Yeah, sure. So when I say reasoning model, these models aren't actually reasoning. They're just next token predictors, right? So it's a really, really powerful autocomplete. And so a reasoning model is simply a model that spends a little bit of its compute doing some introspection. So when you run these models, you'll see this little like thought process or thinking process being exposed to the user. And really behind the scenes, it's just basically a while loop. It takes the user's questions and then like pontificates for a little bit. And then that typically leads to better results. And so we also call that chain of thought. Casey, you know, we've been experimenting with this in Brickmate. And so that's like the next generation of models. They're all going to be reasoning models. So that's what we mean by reasoning. Yeah, the whole closed AI, OpenAI thing is definitely hurting OpenAI's image. And I think DeepSeek really put them on the spot where, you know, a company literally claiming to be open is the one closed, and a company in China of all places is the one giving this incredible gift to the masses. And so I think that was a good move on China's part because it kind of was a forcing function for OpenAI. Now they're starting to be more open about their own research. They've agreed actually in a recent Reddit AMA that they would start sharing some of their internal findings. So which is going to be, again, rising tide is going to lift all boats, right? So it's going to be good for everyone. And again, just speaks to the trend that these models are going to get smarter and smarter because there's more open collaboration. And so there's more and more things that these models can do.
And the benefit of the open source is, and the reasoning, I guess, is you can not only just see the answer that it comes up, but you can also see how the artificial intelligence is thinking and coming up with that answer. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And for some reason that helps. I guess maybe there's a parallel there with how humans think, right? Like when you ask me a question, I might take a second to like say like, okay, this is what they're actually asking. This is, you know, there's like that thought process that happens. And so equipping these models with that same, I guess, notepad to like, to write their ideas on before they actually give you an answer was a big unlock.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get you on and talk a little bit about that. Fly, you might be pressed for time.
A little bit, but I want you to talk about Brickmate.
Sure.
Give me the spiel, dog.
Sure, Brickmate. So I have a decade of software development experience. My co-founder, Joseph, I wish he was on, but he has over a decade of commercial real estate experience. And, you know, in commercial real estate, all these leases are completely heterogeneous. Like they're not these typical residential leases that might be 2 or 3 pages long, right? Like they're 40 pages on average. They're redlined. They might be completely different for whatever, you know, municipality that they're operating in, or in the case of some companies, they might be working on behalf of a landlord and they might just structure these leases differently. And so there's this huge unstructured data problem in the space. And so Brickmate's goal is to completely get rid of that. Basically, our clients will upload leases that are very long and we'll completely extract all the information from that lease. And then we'll present it as a really neat abstraction report. We also give them tools like being able to chat with their lease or querying their data. And we do this all in a couple of minutes and a fraction of the cost. So huge gains for these firms to cut operating costs. That's really Brickmate in a nutshell.
That's great. That was really professional.
Cool.